changed our child's life, which was the most important part of the whole thing, that she went from not sleeping at all to sleeping beautifully in her crib, and we were getting time together as parents. It affects their mental state, and especially once they get into the toddler school age, if they've had poor sleep and nothing's been done about it, it is going to affect mood and behavior, growth and development. My number one thing that I talk about in my consultations is consistency, because it will not work, and you'll confuse your child if you're not consistent. The big misconception about sleep training, that cry it out or the Ferber method is the only way to do it. If a parent comes to me and says, well, can you sleep train my child while we're co-sleeping? I cannot do that. That is not going to happen, because there are so many risks. Do this stuff now, because then you don't have this later, because it does create an issue, especially let's say they want to go to a sleepover at age 10. They may not be able to.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel from Primal Wellness Coaching. And hey, what is wellness without sanity? And for those parents out there, this episode is for you, because we are going to teach you all about how to be sane. Today, I am talking with Missy Morrison Charco, and she is a certified Pediatric Sleep Sense Consultant and a founder of Say Yes to the Rest Pediatric Sleep Consultant. And really, who doesn't love a good pun? I do. Missy basically helps exhausted parents with private coaching and support to get their children sleeping soundly through the night. This is good for the children. It's good for the parents. It's good for everyone. If you have kids that are having a hard time sleeping, if you had kids that had a hard time sleeping and you're kind of looking back on it and wondering what you could have done, or hey, if you are a soon-to-be or an aspiring parent, this episode is for you, because children and sleep is no joke. Sleep deprivation is no joke. So we're going to go ahead and get into all of the wisdom that Missy has to share. She's been doing this for a while. She's been in a number of publications. She's spoken at events. She knows her stuff. So let's go ahead and let's pick Missy's brain on children and sleep. Missy Morrison Charco, welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And a lot of my guests at this point have been more in the realm of martial arts and fitness and nutrition, that type of thing. That's where my professional background lies in the theme of this show. But I snuck in there parenting. So if folks look at my intro video, one of the things that I really want to get into in this show is parenting, because I think being an asset is a huge part of just being a contributing member of society, being a strong member of your family. And for those of us that are parents, there's no one that relies on us to be an asset to them more than our children
and our kids. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
as a father of 2 kids under 6, I am very much in the throes of learning to be a parent, because there's plenty of guidebooks out there, but nothing prepares you to be a parent.
That's true. They do not send you home with a guidebook. That is for sure.
They do not. And so you are a pediatric sleep consultant. Every new parent should have a best friend that is a pediatric sleep consultant. I did not. So I went through probably what most parents go through, which is kind of initial struggles. And then my wife and I actually did do like an online program that was created by a pediatric sleep consultant. So
nice.
I have a profound appreciation for what you do. I think there are many different approaches to sleep coaching for children.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I would very much like to hear about your approach, but before we get into kind of the details of how you coach and all of that, can you just give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Absolutely. So I am a parent of 2 as well. So mine are both under the age of 7. So same thing, still in that younger age. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old girl and a boy. And I like to say that first, because I think that's one of the most important parts of what I do, is that I am a parent and that I have gone through so many of the sleep struggles that parents are going through regularly.
Hmm.
And I also struggled to ask for help, which is a big thing that I talk about now, is
Okay.
about asking for help, because I think it's so important, because as parents, we're so afraid to do that. So that's how this all started for me, is that I had a little one who was colic in the beginning, just struggled so much with sleep. And I had no idea that sleep consultants even existed. So I was, of course, Googling, reading books, things like that, but just nothing at that point was really working with her. And a friend of mine said, "You need to talk to a sleep consultant." And I said, what's that?
Yeah.
And a few months later, it took us a bit to decide to do it.
Yeah.
We're not ones to jump right into things, and we finally did, and it changed. And I say this, it sounds cliche, but it really did change our lives. Like,
Hmm.
it was amazing. And it changed our child's life, which was the most important part of the whole thing. That she went from not sleeping at all to sleeping beautifully in her crib, and we were getting time together as parents. And I said to my husband, "Well, how does this woman do this?" And once I had had my kids, I had left my prior career I was a dancer and a singer and a performer, but that wasn't something I was pursuing as a parent.
Hmm.
And I said, I need to figure out how she did this. A little bit later, we had another little one, and I said again to my husband, "Okay, I need to know how she did this." So I did my research, found out how you could become certified, and I jumped headfirst in and became certified as a sleep consultant. Founded my own business, which was a big part of it as well. And I'm going on year 4 here of working with numerous families, and I absolutely love it. It is completely life-changing for me as well. The fact that I get this chance to alter parents' lives, going from just exhausted and desperate to being well rested and happy, and their child being happy and well rested and getting the sleep that they need. So that's how my journey began. I kind of stumbled into it,
Hmm.
and now here I am.
Oh, I love it. And first of all, say yes to the rest, your business. I love a good pun.
Thank you.
So I love the business name.
Thank you.
But I just have to say, kudos to you for making that decision to hire a sleep consultant, right? Because
Yeah.
a lot of parents never get to that point.
Yes.
They go through the struggles and they kind of accept it as a way of normal life.
Yes.
And like you said, once you had implemented the protocol that you were given, your daughter was sleeping beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
You were sleeping beautifully.
Yep.
And that's a beautiful thing,
I
because
still am. I love it.
children with poor sleep they're at a disadvantage in a lot of things.
Yes, that is a perfect way of putting it. It really does. It affects their mental state, and especially once they get into the toddler school age, if they've had poor sleep and nothing's been done about it, it is going to affect mood and behavior, growth and development. It's affecting all of those things. It really does take a toll, not only on the parents, but of course on the child as well. Absolutely.
And that's where I think the hang up may lie with some parents, is that when they think of, let's say, fixing their kids' sleep, they're looking at it as kind of a selfish thing. They're thinking, well, I'm doing this because I want to get better sleep, because this is really hard on me.
Yeah.
But they're missing the other side of that, where just because your kid is waking you up and they want to snuggle 75 times a night doesn't mean that that's actually good for them.
Good for
right?
them.
Because wouldn't it be better for them if they didn't wake up 75 times a night and they just
Yes.
kept sleeping?
And that's such a big, a key component of when I do speak with parents before they decide to work with me, if they do decide to, is that guilt feeling,
Mhm.
of feeling, because and you mentioned something before too that stuck out to me about that normalization. The normalization that as parents we're supposed to be exhausted all the time, and that until they're 18, oh, this is the way it is, or moms, this is the way, you're supposed to be just, exhausted and sleep deprived, but yet still doing 18,000 other things at the same time, going to work, and or cleaning the house, do it, whatever it is that you're doing at home. And so then there's that guilt feeling of, well, I'm not going to ask for help because this is the way it's supposed to be. And it doesn't have to be that way. It
Hmm.
really doesn't. And we're all better parents if we're getting that rest that we need. And if our child, and it's the effect that it has on their growth and development is the part that I wish people understood more of, how much that sleep deprivation really does take a toll, and can have such a huge effect on your child. It's quite bigger than people realize.
Yep. And I am a fitness, wellness, health coach. So I work with people. People come to me. Generally, the starting point is they want some kind of body composition change, right? And
Right.
that's not my favorite thing to work on, but that's usually where people first identify a desire to receive the type of coaching that trainers like myself offer. However, to me, that's almost the lowest priority, or I would say that comes as a body composition change comes as a natural side effect of just fixing other things in your life. And so I almost become like a life coach.
Yeah.
And so I will craft workout routines and I will craft nutrition programs, but that is not my focus when I work with customers. My focus is on optimizing every aspect of their life.
Yes.
And the first thing I start with every time is sleep.
Sleep. I bet. Yeah. It's
People,
the key ticket.
it's the key
Yes.
ticket. People, they don't really see it as a priority when it comes to anything other than waking up
Yes.
with energy.
Well, I think a lot of that too is the Western culture too, is that we're very much sleep is for the weak. I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, and especially from adults, I bet you hear stuff like that. Oh, no, I need like 4 hours a night, 5 hours, I'm good. You know, and it's almost as if that's a good thing, you know, like we should be proud of that, when it's really you're hurting yourself, you know. Right. You really are. And I think I tell parents a lot that, you know, if you instill these sleep habits in the beginning when they're little, they'll carry it to adulthood. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then they'll have healthy sleep in adulthood, and then that will be a priority for them, as opposed to what you hear all the time is, you know, oh, you know, who knows? Who cares? It's not that big of a deal. Or, you know, I don't have routines, and who needs a routine?
Well, something that's funny is I have an online sleep program. So I have a program called Hack Your Sleep that anyone they can go and buy, and they can do the program.
Yeah.
I give it to my private clients for free. But many of the protocols or the tips or the hacks in that program I got from the pediatric sleep coaching program that my wife and I did for our first child. And of course, I've added a lot to it, stacked a lot of things on top of it, and, you know, things specifically for adults. But you're absolutely right. To the point you just said, these things carry forward from your childhood all the way to your adulthood. Having good sleep habits, good sleep hygiene.
Yes.
All of these things.
Sleep hygiene is absolutely just having one of the biggest things that I say to people, if you don't do anything else that I suggest, you know, do the routine, like get the bedtime and nap time routines going now, because it is so key. And you know, if parents look at me and say, well, why is this so important? And it's not just about putting up a piece of paper on the child's wall that says what it is. Now, that's very helpful, and I highly suggest all of that. The visual cues are all amazing, but it's also about your brain and your body and everything in these the hormones that have to produce. And there's so much more to it than just, like you said, going to sleep, waking up. There's so much more to the whole aspect of it, and that plays into the stages of sleep and how all of that works. So and I think there's a lot of lack of knowledge about it. And that's always my key is, okay, how much information can I give to my families as well? Not just give them their, you know, sleep plans and such, but also, okay, here's information, and here's why. Here's why we're doing this. Here's why this is happening. Here's why your little one wakes up at night. You know, giving them the reason behind it.
One of the most simple hacks to improve your overall quality of life, including things like energy, immunity, mood, and more, is to get better sleep. And I am going to help you sleep better, completely free. The thing is, sleep is easy to ignore. Life gets busy and sleep loses priority. There's a problem, though. Where many of you want to sleep better, you can't seem to. The thing is, so many things have become a part of a normal lifestyle in our society, which are secretly sabotaging many aspects of our wellness, including sleep. That is why I created the Hack Your Sleep program. In this program, I am going to give you a number of low to no cost, simple to implement hacks you can start doing right now to fix your sleep. By using these tips and hacks, you will fall asleep easier, stay asleep longer, and most importantly, sleep deeper, allowing your body to cycle through the many stages of sleep multiple times throughout the night. That is how recovery happens. That is how you wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready to unleash your best self. And because you're a Superhuman Blueprint podcast listener, I am going to give you access to this course completely free. Go to hackyoursleep.net and use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. That is hackyoursleep.net, Superhuman at checkout. This will get you 100% off and on the path to getting better sleep than you've had since you were a kid. I'd love to dig in on some of what your protocol looks like that you work with on your clients, because I have very narrow exposure, but my wife and I did the online kind of self-paced sleep coaching program, and I read a book that someone had recommended to me. So I was able to kind of pick from both of those things. But that's
that's amazing. And I always say that to families too, is find what works for you. Right? Find what fits for your family. I'm a very honest person when people come to talk to me in the beginning. If it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. And if I feel that they would do better with something else, if it's a book or an app or something, then I'm going to tell them that, or I'm going to say, oh, here's a couple tips, try this. And then if it's still not working, come back to me. So, and that kind of leads me into how my process works and how I work with clients. So I start out with a free call. That's the first thing, because I think it's really important that you have is it the right fit for both of us, not just for them, but for me as well? Is this the ideal person that I also want to work with? Because I want to make sure that parents are, one, that they're ready to do the sleep training, two, that they're ready to listen and really commit to it and be dedicated and consistent, because the best results are always going to come from consistency. Always. That is my number one thing that I talk about in my consultations is consistency, because it will not work. And you'll confuse your child if you're not consistent. Your child's going to be like, wait a minute, what is going on? Whether they're baby, toddler, older
multiple
child,
caregivers, right? Two parents, grandparent, whatever. Everyone has to be on the same page.
Everybody has to be on board. And that's a big thing too, that I always, and that's where that call comes in too, is we talk about the partner. Is the partner on board? Is the caregiver, is the nanny, is the grandparent, is, whoever is a part of that family that's helping to raise that child. Is the daycare going to work with us? Things like that. We talk about all of that in that first call. And then once parents, if they decide that it is the right fit and we decide to move forward, then they fill out another big questionnaire where I get more in-depth information. And I'm always adding to that questionnaire as I continue to learn more about sleep and different sleep disorders, things like that, because I want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases. So they fill that out. And then from there, I create a custom plan for that family. Now, that being said, someone will, might be listening, say, well, wait a minute, there's only a couple of real ways to sleep train. And that's true. There are only a couple of certain strategies, but finding the right strategy for the family is important, and making sure that the parents are comfortable with it, that it's also the right strategy for the child. And then a big part of what I do when I create these plans is creating a schedule for the families as well. And I take into account, what are their work schedules? What is the daycare schedule? What is school schedule? What activities do they have? Do we need to work around anything that's very important? Now, I expect 100% consistency for those 3 weeks when I'm working with my families, but I do try to be as flexible. A great example is I had a client once who they live on a farm. And they said to me, Missy, there's no way we can ever do this. This will never work. We have to be outside for the horses. We have to do this. We have to do that.
Okay.
And I said, you're right. That does make it difficult, but we'll figure out a way. I knew they were a great client to work with. And I said, let's figure it out. And we did. We figured it out and made it flexible. And
that's where private consulting comes into play, right? And that's the reason that I have a self-paced program that people can do, but a lot of people opt to work with me because
work with you. Yes,
they need to make those modifications, those adjustments.
Yes. And you can't always, sometimes that you need to make changes or do something, but you don't know how to do it. And that's where I come in, right?
Yep.
That's where something like someone like you would come in for what you do. And so that's such a big part of it. And that's the big difference between an app and a book and myself is that I am going to give you the specifics. And as I work with my clients for 3 weeks at a time. If we haven't reached our sleep goals by then, we keep going until we figure it out.
Okay.
And over the course of that time through various avenues, phone calls, messaging, things like that, they can reach me during my hours where I answer questions, we address concerns, we celebrate together if things are going fantastic.
Yeah.
So there's all these different avenues. They have a sleep log, an interactive sleep log that I check twice a day. And that's how I see what their child's patterns are in their sleep. So I can say, oh, let's change the nap. It needs to go 15 minutes earlier. It needs to go, 15 minutes later. So all of that, I'm very hands-on. I try very hard to keep my boundaries. But I am very much that sleep consultant who's checking the logs, right before I go to bed to make sure everything's going okay. I genuinely do care about my families. That's the biggest thing is I want them to have success. I want them to be sleeping at the end of this and for their child to be sleeping. So, and as far as strategies go, it's a big misconception about sleep training that cry it out or the Ferber method is the only way to do it. And so that's another fear of parents coming to me is that they don't want to because they think that I'm going to say to them, oh, you're going to leave your baby and off you go.
Yep.
I actually don't even use cry it out.
Okay.
I don't need to. And coming from full disclosure, I actually had to use it with my child. And that's okay. I'm okay with the fact that I had to, because that was what steps we had to take as a family. And that's just how my child was.
That's what I used.
But I have found that with actually all of the families I've worked with, I have actually never had to do it. So we always do, more comforting strategies, more strategies that the parents are more comfortable with, which is a big part of it, is making sure the parents are comfortable. So I base it off of parent sensitivity, child sensitivity. If the child does not like having mom and dad in the room, then we switch to another strategy where they're still able to come and check on the child, but they're not in there right there with the child where the child's looking at them like, why are you here?
Okay.
Why are you in the room with me?
Yeah.
So we base it on the child and on the parent. Now that being said, we do sometimes speed things up a little bit. We'll get parents out of the room a little quicker and that's again, having me in your corner, we're able to reconstruct and redo and re-strategize as we're working together to find the best fit for your family. And I can't put it more simpler than that, I don't think.
That's awesome. And so I want to dig in on what you do from the, the comforting angle. But
yeah, let's
flip back to the cry it out just for a couple minutes, because that's what I have experience with. Right. And that's what we used, and parents hate it and it's awful. But in a lot of cases it works.
It works. Yeah.
And sometimes it works very quickly.
Yes. Sometimes you can get much quicker results with it. And again, I had to do it with my daughter. It was, we tried the other strategies first and found very quickly that our child was one that was more angry with us for being there. And it wasn't that she was, she had the protest crying, but it was more like we'd come into the room and she'd just stand up and look at us like, why are you in here? I want to do this. And so she was pretty independent about most of them are very independent ones if they really are not loving the parents in the room. But I have found in my work side of it, though, that just being able to have parents in the room, again, it just relieves that. It allows them to not have that stress about doing that. Does it maybe take a few days longer? Yes. But is it successful? Absolutely. It completely is.
I definitely want to hear about that.
Consistent. Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, I still have struggles with my 5-year-old. He's kind of a roller coaster of.
They're a whole other ballgame.
Yeah. With him, it's a roller coaster of bedtime being easy and bedtime being extremely challenging. So we're on the low side of that at the moment.
Yeah. I love toddlers. That's one of my favorite ages to work with, is that like 2.5, 3 to 5 and 6 age group. I love working with that age group, and people say, really? I thought you just did babies. No, I work with kids up to age 12. And some of my favorites are these older ones, because a lot of times when it comes to the toddlers, it's not even, a lot of it isn't about sleep. It's about boundaries and about creating those boundaries and the routine. And that is so often is what we work on first when I work with toddler clients. So we do days leading up to sleep training first, where we work on daytime boundaries, tactics for parents. I give them a whole other packet of stuff for them to work on. And some of it pertains to them, some of it doesn't at the moment, but there's even ways of talking to our kids if they're having a temper tantrum or things like that, just giving them empathetic formulas on how to deal with those moments, and how in bedtime, in that time, that routine, how to make those little boundary pushers that they are at that age, how to help them, one, have fun with the bedtime routine, but also to efficiently get it done and to have it done the same way every night, so that it's not a problem every night. Because often it's the delay of, well, I need a sip of water, or I want to read another book, or I want to wear those PJs, I want to change.
Yes.
And
you're describing every evening for me.
We nip it in the butt really quick.
Oh, okay. So really, this is a very self-serving conversation.
Yeah,
You're going to help me solve
okay.
all my problems right now. And it's
boundaries are huge when it comes to that age, and giving them choices, though. That's the other part, is giving them, you have to foster their independence while also having the boundaries. Yes,
I try that, but I definitely want some tips from you then.
We might have to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, right. What's funny is I have a 1.5-year-old, or a year and 7 months now, or 8 months, I don't know, somewhere around there. And he's easy. His bedtime routine is 15 minutes.
Nice.
My 5-year-old, from the time he gets out of the bath and by the time he actually stops trying to interact with us, I don't know, hour and a half.
Oh no.
Yeah,
that's too long. Yeah,
it's pretty long sometimes. It's not always that long, but it can be. It's not.
And that's a perfect example for how that can affect even like that age group. Like having our bedtime routine, the point of it is to cue the body and cue the brain that it's time for sleep. And so I'll always say to parents, don't let that go past that 20 to 30 minute mark, because if not, the brain and the body forget that bedtime is supposed to be coming. And then it makes it more difficult for them to then fall asleep and then stay asleep as well. Plus, it's most likely pushing their bedtime later than it probably needs to be.
Okay.
So that's the other thing to be careful with too, because once we start having too late of bedtimes, then you really start to see wake ups in the night. They have trouble falling asleep right away. Everything's fragmented. They're grumpy in the morning. Then that just becomes a vicious cycle. And yes, it's a whole thing. I love that age group though. They are I love it. I love babies too, but I love toddlers. Because you can get them involved.
Well, they're little
teach
people,
them about
right?
it. Yes, you do big bedtime routine charts with the visualization. All of that's really helpful. There's a lot of, I can give you some tactics and tools.
So my older son, his name is Kaio. So with Kaio, he's finally at an age where he's got a little bit of comprehension of logic. So sometimes we're able to use logic, and a lot of time it is, like you said, just giving options, right? And I know that without question, he wants the door open when he goes when he's ready to go to sleep, when we leave the room. But I always ask him, do you want the door open or do you want the door closed? So he gets that kind of final
choice,
final positive decision that he gets to decide the door is open. Because we used to always close the door because we're still up and doing things. So we don't want the noise to bother him, but he wants the door open, and I know that. And so, okay, you can decide, even though I already know what the decision is. But so having parents in the room while the kid is going to sleep. So this is kind of foreign to me. So let's talk about that. So what's the purpose of that?
To give it in kind of a nutshell of how it helps both parents and the child, especially in the infant range. So let's say from 4 to 5 months up to that 12-month range. We'll kind of talk in that kind of that area. One, how it helps the parents is they don't feel like they're leaving their child or a lot of usually I hear the term abandoning.
So it's partially for the parents.
Yes.
Parents are
Yes.
important too.
Yes, it's very much a lot for the parents, which is okay. And
Yeah.
and I want parents to be comfortable. So I love that, especially if you have a family who's coming from co-sleeping.
Yeah.
This is a big help for them because that is a huge change for
Hmm.
mom and a huge change for dad, but mostly for mom.
Yep.
It's a huge change for mom. And this gives her that opportunity to still be there with her child and offer comfort. So we're still allowing the child to fall asleep independently, but we're offering occasional comfort there to make sure and offering the sound of our voice to let the child know that we're there still in the room. And which again is also helpful for the child if they've come from that co-sleeping point too, and they're used to having that parent there all the time. This allows them in the beginning to still have that sound, that little bit of touch, so that they know the parent is still there. This is also a really good tactic when if the mom is having to pull the night feeds, if we're at that stage and the
Hmm.
night feed needs to go to help with sleep, that's typically 6 months on. And if baby's at the right weight and all things are all the boxes are checked.
Sure. Yeah.
But this is very helpful for mom again because mom is able to be there with the child as well, and for dad too, and partners. It can be very comforting to the parent.
So is this actually sleeping in the same room, or is this just being in
No,
the room
you're
with the
just
kid
in the
going
room
to sleep?
until they fall asleep.
Okay.
Yeah. And then over the course of time, we back the parent up in the room and then slowly out of the room. So
Okay.
it's a gradual process.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So
Yes.
eventually they're like kind of hanging out
Eventually they're
outside the door, but the kid knows
yes.
they're there. Oh,
Yes.
that
Yes.
makes
So
sense
it's
because one of the things that, that I kept getting was, well, you want your kid, the conditions that they fall asleep in to be the conditions that they wake up in. So if
yes.
you're in the room when they fall asleep, then they're going to be, shocked and upset if they wake up and you're not there.
Yes,
So what
and
you're saying makes sense.
that's an absolutely perfect point, and that is very true, and that's the reason why when I explain to people why does my baby cry in the middle of the night, especially if they are having an association or a prop that's involved with falling asleep, that's why baby cries in the middle of the night because they wake up and they're like, wait a minute, where'd everybody go? It's a complete shock. But that strategy just allows it to go. It's just taking baby steps
Hmm.
towards the
Okay.
child having that. So, and then there's another strategy that's a little less involved, but the parent is still able to go in and offer comfort and support to the child at the same time. But they then get out of the room in order to allow that child the chance to independently fall asleep and learn those skills. And then if baby falls asleep, then you don't have to go back in. You're good to go.
Okay.
And that's also done over kind of a time span, and then usually the child by a certain couple of days is figured it out and all is good. But I would say yes, a lot of it is more for the parent than it is for the child, because most of the children, babies and toddlers alike, they actually adapt quite quickly. They're okay with it. And they don't have a sense of fear or anything that doesn't really register, especially for our infants and our babies. They're okay with it. It's just that protest in the beginning is their way of saying, this is change. Why did you change this? Why is this different? And then once they understand that's the new normal, then there's no more protest. And all of a sudden everybody's sleeping beautifully. And it's lovely.
It is lovely.
It's
So
just
lovely.
lovely for everyone.
Yes. And yeah, so my 5-year-old, when we first sleep trained him, I mean, we did try it out. It was terrible, but 3 days he was sleep trained.
It was quick. Yeah.
But then every time we would deviate from the routine, anytime he gets sick, we coddle him a bit more. He needs a little bit more TLC.
Yeah.
And then we got to start all over. And now that he's a little bit older, it's kind of a combination of his growing sense of independence and, him trying to wheel and deal bedtime every single day. And then sometimes he has sleepovers with family, and that changes his routine. And he's like, oh, they do things this way and I like it this way. And that's not the way that we do it.
Yes, I'm always, it's funny that you say that, 'cause I'm, as a sleep person, of course, with my kids, my kids are very much on a very set schedule, and my in-laws and whatnot, they all follow that set schedule. They don't really have much of choice. But I know my mother-in-law looks at me like I'm crazy, but I also always say to her, but the kids sleep beautifully, don't they, when they come to see you, and there's no issues at night. And she's like,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, that's true. But yes, toddlers, well, that's one of the biggest things that people come to me for with that age group is I can't get that bedtime routine to just go smoothly every night.
Right.
And we look at all the things too. And often too, a part of that is the scheduling too. If the child is already past the point of being a bit overtired at that time frame, that makes that bedtime routine 10 times harder. That it just ups the ante with everything. So making sure that you start that bedtime routine before they're at that point can also really help to make sure that it goes a bit smoother. Because once they're overtired, you can't negotiate with toddlers. It's hard.
Yeah. And so I know every family is different, every child is different, but what can you describe an average good bedtime routine?
Absolutely. For a baby or toddler.
Oh gosh. Can we do one of each?
Yeah, I can.
I'm very curious to hear what the difference is.
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple little differences because of the independent stuff, giving them some extra things to do. So with your infants, and you can start bedtime routines as early as newborns. That's actually one of the things I talk about when we do our sleep goals with newborns, with that program is just, we're just setting goals, but doing that bedtime routine. So for them, it might just be a little bit of a sponge bath, a little bit of a cuddle, maybe a little bit of a song, a nice full feed, and then off they go to bed when they're newborns. Once we get into let's say the 5 month, 4 month, 5 month and up, then we want to start kind of rearranging things in that bedtime routine. So we don't want that feed to now be right before bedtime. So typically I'll suggest if baby's having a bath, and we do that bath first, go ahead and get them into their PJs, and then go ahead and do that nice full feed, whether it's the bottle or the breastfeeding. Take care of that, and then get them into I always recommend a sleep sack. I'm a big sleep sack promoter. Get them into their sleep sack after that, then go ahead and read a story, do a little song and a cuddle with them, and then put them into their bed awake. Nice and simple. Should take about 20 minutes, maximum 30 minutes for bedtime. Nap time routine looks exactly the same, but it's 5 to 15 minutes. And that one's shorter. And we don't have a feed in the nap time routine. You want to do that feed after the nap to get rid of that feed to sleep association. So that's a good little tip if anyone's listening
I'm still giving my 1.5-year-old a bottle.
They should have it after the nap. Yeah, because then they don't have that feed to sleep association. It helps them to fall asleep. Make sure they go to bed awake. Yeah, so you switch that one, but keep that routine a little bit shorter. So that one would just be, if you do PJs, you can do into PJs, but usually it's just sleep sack, one quick story, into bed awake, nice and quick. Now, once you start getting into the older kids, and once they are, in that toddler range, let's say around 2.5, 3, and they can start doing things and they want to start doing things and helping you, then usually I recommend a bath. And then we get out, and you can play with this if they like to brush their teeth first, do teeth first, and then do that bath. Get them into their PJs and offer them choices of these 2 PJs. Which one do you want to choose tonight? You're giving them choices, but don't offer 4 pairs of PJs, just 2. And that's it. Just like instead of 4 books, you say, of these 2 books or of these 3 books, which 2 would you like to read? So, and then that's it. There's no negotiating. You can't let them push you around.
We do 2 books, but we're like, go pick out your 2 books from all your books, and that's sometimes a process.
Lay it out for them. But once they've brushed their teeth, had that bath, get them into their PJs, but keep the order the same every single night. Don't change it. Don't do bath and brush teeth one night and then switch it. Keep it the same every night. Get them into those PJs, then have some story time. Give them that offer, have that story time. If they are potty training and working on that, I always recommend going potty right before bedtime, just to avoid getting up at night and avoiding those things. I also, often people say, well, wait a minute, don't you have a drink of water in there? No, I don't, because they don't need that drink of water. If they've hydrated all day and they've had their hydration at dinner time, then it's actually better not to have a giant glass of water right before bed, because one, that's just going to make them have to get up to go to the bathroom, or they're going to have an accident. Now, if they are dead set on needing a sip, sure, just give them a little sip. That's all they're just looking to try to get things. So make it part of the routine, though. If that's part of something they need, if it's go to the bathroom, have that quick sip of water, and then it's into bed, awake.
Okay.
And that's it. No negotiating. And I always recommend with the toddlers, have it on the wall. Have a visualization chart so that they can say, oh, I did this. Oh, I did this. Oh, I did this. I did this. I did this. And they can see it, and it remains the same every single night. That's the crucial part about all of it, is it has to stay the same. And that goes for the babies too. Keep it the same every single night. And that's what I love about when I work with my families too, is they'll say to me, oh, well, we add our prayers in here, or we do this part, or we do something different that they have, or we say goodnight to the other parent, or they might say goodnight to the pet, and we add that in, and we just say, okay, that's a part of the routine, but do it
every day,
every single night. Yes. And we do it at the same time too. So that's
actually on that. No, that's really good. And actually, on that note, I'd be interested in your opinion on something, because in the last maybe 4 or 5 months, I incorporated in just doing a gratitude with my son.
Yes.
After we read stories, he lays down, we do a couple of gratitudes each, and then I sing him some songs, and then he's supposed to go to sleep at that point. But I've been wondering if I should maybe move that earlier to like dinner time or something, because it kind of gets his little brain working. So he lays down in his bed, and then he starts to think, okay, I have to come up with some things now.
Yes, that can happen. So there's kind of two sides to this, because I do love mindfulness practices
I think it's a great way to end the day.
Wonderful. Yeah. Yes. But if you do find, and I've actually found this with my daughter, if we do start to talk about something, or we do anything like that, it does sometimes do that to her, where it will actually do the opposite of what I need it to do for her, where if instead of wanting her to calm down, she actually starts to get almost a bit worked up, because she's trying, like you said, trying to think of something. So if you're finding that with the gratitude stuff, that's what's happening there, then yes, I would move it either to like the very beginning of the bedtime routine, or to more dinner time, but replace that with something else. So I have and this is something I give to my clients of that age group, is I give mindfulness practices that I've been able to get from workshops that I've done, that I'm allowed to give out. Yeah. And so it may be something as easy as, especially if they're having a hard time relaxing, imagine yourself as a pat of butter melting, and you have them have them close their eyes and just imagine being butter melting, or imagine being a feather floating in a breeze. And so just things like that to have them just start to relax in their own mind. So, and a lot of clients will use sometimes like a meditation app, if their child really likes to listen to something, but I always say, keep it short. We don't need anything super long, or if it's just a little bit of music playing in the background.
I dig the feather on the breeze. That's cool.
Right. Yes. And it's just something, and the thing is, adults can use this too, right? So it's, but just having them think about things that are going to calm them instead of getting them, hyped up. Like I do with my daughter, I do affirmations. So when I'm leaving, she and I say, I am strong. I am strong. I am brave. I'm brave. I am beautiful. I'm kind. I'm unique. And we do that every night, but she doesn't have to come up with anything. So it's just her just reaffirming that. So you can do.
So do you say it first and then she repeats it?
Okay. She repeats it. Yeah. And I pick the ones on the night that I feel relate to what her day was like.
Okay.
And so that way it's something that she resonates with. So yeah, we kind of change it as the day goes, especially if she's had a rough day at school, or if the unfortunate world of bullying and things like that, even at this young age of 7, it does happen. And so saying things like, you are special, you are unique, you are strong, things like that, I'll use when I know she's had a tougher day, than others. So, but yeah, so those are a couple of tricks to use as well.
I dig it. I like that a lot. And I am a big fan of a consistent bedtime routine. And as Well, as any parents trying to do this together will discover, it's really important to be on the same page, and
Yes.
like you're saying, every aspect, and that's something where my wife and I, we tend to kind of drift apart on certain ways that we do bedtime over time. We're really good at sitting down and having a conversation and deciding this is the way we're going to do it, and then over time, separately, it looks a lot different 6 months later than it looked
That
when
it
we
did.
sat down and talked about it. So good reminder for myself and any folks out there doing this as a group or a
Absolutely.
familial unit to
And it's good to
keep
revisit it,
talking.
right?
Yep.
Just to, even if it's every month or every 2 months, just to revisit what you are doing within those routines with your kid. Because there's obviously going to be a little bit of difference between parents, and that's okay. That's what makes us, unique as well, right? Is
Mhm.
that dad does something a little different than mom does. And it's so good that you guys alternate too. I always highly suggest that to parents if they can, and it isn't always possible, but if you can alternate between caregivers, so that the child is used to having different people put them to bed. That
Yeah.
also can help when you want to go away and have a sitter, if you want to take them to the grandparents, or they want to go for something like that. They need to be able to be used to having being able to I stumbled on my words there, being able to do that same routine somewhere else, but also know that someone else can do it with them, and that that's okay. That's very helpful for people.
I love that. Okay, big question. What are your thoughts on co-sleeping?
And full disclosure, like I said, I'm an honest person. I did it for 9 months. So
Okay.
I am not going to sit here on my soapbox and say, oh my gosh, so, co-sleeping is the worst thing you've ever done. I didn't have a choice. I really didn't when my daughter, or I didn't think I did. Maybe I
Yeah.
should phrase it that way. I didn't know that there were options out there for me. And that kind of always takes me back to why I do this.
Mhm.
But we have to, as moms, as parents, we have to survive. And that sometimes is the way that it has to happen. What I hope is that parents, even if they listen to this or they hear something else, ask for help, find the help, because we need to make sure we're doing co-sleeping safely. So from a sleep consultant perspective, I have to promote safe sleep. And I cannot say if a parent comes to me and says, well, can you sleep train my child while we're co-sleeping? I cannot do that.
Yeah.
That is not going to happen. Because there are so many risks with co-sleeping, unfortunately. Not everyone is going to do it safely. And for that reason, parents need to really find that way to start to, if they are in that situation right now, to think about, am I doing it safely? How can I make it safer if I'm not planning to change that situation? Am I ready to change that situation? If so, how can I seek help? And what are my options? Lot of parents. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Is safety still a consideration or a concern if it's an older kid, like say 4 years old or something, not an infant?
Not as much. Not
Okay.
as much. It is more in the infant world.
Right.
When it comes to your toddlers and older children, it's more about the skills that they need to learn to fall asleep, but also and to help them establish that independence as
Mhm.
well. But no, the safety part is not as
Okay.
great there. That's for sure. When we have the infants, we're worrying about suffocation, rolling over, child falling out of the bed, things like that, or falling into a crease or under a pillow, things like that. And it does happen, and it happens way too often,
Yeah.
because people aren't doing it safely.
Yeah.
But
We never co-slept with either of our kids, but when our first in particular was an infant, when he was a newborn, he would wake up to feed in the middle of the night, and I would bring him to my wife and she would feed him in bed, and I was always terrified of him falling asleep in
Yeah.
bed and rolling over onto him or something.
Absolutely. I didn't love it as a parent who had to do it or felt that I didn't have any choices. I didn't sleep well because I was always worried about her, always.
Yeah.
And so once, and also it hurt physically. My body actually, I would wake up in pain because I had to nap with her. I had to sleep, and I went to bed.
Yeah.
People would come over to visit us, and here I was going to bed at 6:30 and 7 o'clock because I had to go to bed, or I had to go lay down with her for a nap. It
Yeah.
was debilitating in a lot of ways. So, and again, there'll be parents that'll say, well, this is what my family does and this works for me. Great. if that does, then please just do it safely. That's the best advice that I can give. But if you are ready for a change, seek that change. There is a way to do it, because a lot of times I'll hear, oh, no, my child will never be able to sleep independently. That's not possible. They've co-slept. Yes, they can't. Yes, they can. They absolutely can learn how to do it. Absolutely.
So I know a couple of parents that co-sleep with their kids. Their kids are tweens now.
Okay.
So it's been going on for a long time. So obviously there's a time where it's really, you got to kind of just make that change. But with, it's almost a young adult at this point. So like, do you personally ever work with that situation, or is that kind of like aged out of where you work with?
Yeah, once we get into that tweens up to age 12 and 11 and 12, I'll see that. Often parents that come to me in that age range, they're more concerned if their child just isn't sleeping well, and there could be something underlying. But I do have ones that come and say, listen, my child's still coming to bed and they're 10 years old and I need this to stop. Yeah. And that's when it comes back to the to what we talked about in the toddler world, where it comes back to boundaries and teaching them, because often there might be anxieties and fears related to this too. I mean,
their whole life, 10 plus years, right? They've shared a bed.
Yep. So that we often have to do work like that first on making sure they know that it's a safe space. And that is why I say to parents early on, when they do have infants, do this stuff now, because then you don't have this later, because it does create an issue, especially let's say they want to go to a sleepover at age 10. They may not be able to. So you want to make sure that you're giving them, even if especially if a parent's doing it for themselves still, just think about those things. Think about that independence that your child needs to be able to continue, because all of a sudden they're going to be in high school, and all of a sudden they're going to be leaving the house, and they need to be able, and yes, will they outgrow certain things? Sure, they will. But it's definitely making sure they know that their bedroom is a safe place without the parent. Doing it, a lot of times we have to do that in gradual steps, where if the parent has been sleeping with that child at that age, where the parent just then starts by sitting on the edge of the bed.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you can take a similar approach to like the toddler or the baby thing, where you just
you'll have the parent will like sit on the bed, then in the chair, then and working. But we also do a lot of work on the side of working on the anxieties and the fears, incorporating mindfulness practices. Okay. If the child has a fear of the dark, we spend time in the dark with a flashlight, reading stories, playing a game, making the dark fun, so that they see that it's a good thing. So there's so many tactics that we can use to help them, but absolutely, it's something at some point you do have to let them have that separation and let them have that independence, because their sleep will be better if they're by themselves, in the sense of not needing to be up against mom or dad, right? They need to, they need to breathe and such. It's definitely so. And again, like sleepovers, things like that, being able to go away. Maybe they play on a sports team and they have to travel with a sports team. What do? You have to at some point kind of, make that separation. But again, every family's different. Yep. And if it's working, then it's working, right? But it's when it's not working anymore and you need the change, it's okay to make that change and to seek that support, and in whatever fashion that is that works for your family.
Yeah, and a lot of my listeners are in the age range of getting ready to have a child to having kids that are in their early to mid-teens.
Early to mid-teens, yeah.
Yeah, so we got the whole spectrum here.
Yes. Yeah, and I always say too, especially if parents come to me in that age range and they say, my child is still waking up, let's say at 2:00, and they're up for 2 hours. Well, we delve into all of that and we say, okay, what are they snoring? Are they taking melatonin or something? What's going on? Is there something that's going on during the day that's affecting the night sleep? So we do a full deep dive. And then if I see things that are from a medical standpoint, then I say, okay, nope, first we're going to see the ENT, or we're going to see that pediatrician, or we're going to see all of that. And we're going to make sure that we're doing this the right way and make sure there's nothing underlying. Because often if a child is still struggling with sleep at, let's say age 10, there may be something else there.
Right.
that we need to work on. And then, or it's often as simple as, are they getting enough physical exercise during the day? Are
Right.
they getting enough daylight during the day? And are you getting
These
all
are the
those,
things
'cause
I coach grown-ups on.
Yes, it's so important getting that sun and that daylight, getting the physical exercise, the fresh air, all of that plays into the hormones that are working and what's being built up so you can build the sleep pressure to go to sleep. So making sure your kids getting all of that and the routine, making sure,
Yep.
do they have a routine? It's really important, especially with that age range. I actually just wrote a blog post last week on teens and sleep. I don't work with teens one-on-one per se, but doesn't mean that there's not things that can be offered to help
Yeah.
parents there. And I talk about in there about blue light and screens and screen time, and making
Yep.
the end of the day a screen free zone.
Yep.
Because you should be turning your phones off. Everybody should be turning their phones off an hour before sleep.
Yep.
And is it hard to do? Yes. But can we do it? Yes. Just try baby steps. If your child is using their phone before bed, well, okay, cut it back by 15 minutes. Then cut it back by another 15 minutes.
That's what I do with adults.
Yes. Yeah. And tell them why, right? Like that's the other thing, is explain to, and you probably do this with your adults. You have to explain to them why.
Yep.
And so same thing with your teen, because you're going to get pushback.
Circadian rhythm, hormone secretion.
Yep. All of that. So, and it's all these things can be used for all of the age groups. It's important, but making sure your teens are getting sleep that's an important one too. It's a big one.
Nobody wants a cranky teenager. It's kind of a byproduct of being a teenager anyway. Might as well give them every chance they have to be happy.
Yes, absolutely.
I love it. Well, Missy, this has been an amazing chat, and I've gotten a lot of tips. So putting those in my pocket to
absolutely
chat with my wife about this evening, to see about what kind of modifications we can make to the bedtime routine for our 5-year-old. So
it's always good, like I said, revisit it and see what needs to be changed and how you can make it a little bit easier for him and for you guys. And another thing I like with toddlers too is if you have a toddler who's really dislikes the bedtime routine. So there's always that one that doesn't want to do any of the things. Make it fun. So if he doesn't like to get in the bath, then how about we hop like frogs to the bath instead? If we don't like to brush our teeth, let's pretend our teeth are rocks and shine them. Let's shine them so they're nice and shiny like a rock. So just incorporating fun things, or let's walk backwards into bed, things like that just make it fun and they forget about the challenge, right? That they were trying to put on you. It's all of a sudden that becoming a frog is way more exciting than it was to try to fight you to get in the tub.
Funny you say that. My wife is much better at that kind of thing than I am. And my kid would much prefer to do bedtime with her every day than with me.
Than with you.
I'm like, this is a routine, this is what we're doing. And she's like, hey, let's use our imagination along the way.
Yeah, just keep
imagination.
I
remember that. So. I used to have an imagination.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, boundaries, right?
Boundaries with the imagination.
Yep. Well, cool. Well, I have the links that you shared with me to your website, to your social media, and so I will put all of those in the show notes for today's episode at the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.com.
Amazing.
And for anyone that is struggling to put their kids to sleep or is getting ready to have a kid, I highly recommend that you check out the links that I'm going to share and possibly get in touch with Missy, because like we chatted about almost an hour ago, sleep is sorely underappreciated for everything that it does. It is a lot more than just waking up with energy. It is health, it is wellness, it is immunity, it is happiness, it is relationships, it is everything.
Yes, it is. It is all encompassing. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Well, Missy, this has been a lovely chat. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. Yes, this has been great. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.